From our Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Our top story tonight. The State Department has accused Roger Waters, co-founder of British rock band Pink Floyd, of using anti-Semitic insinuations. Waters recently organized a show in Berlin that featured reenactments of scenes from a film based on his group's album The Wall that is critical of fascism. The musician said criticism of the concert was disingenuous and politically motivated. The State Department said the concert contained images deeply offensive to Jewish people and trivialized the Holocaust. Waters is a supporter of the Palestinian cause. He was part of the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions, or BDS, movement against Israel. Waters has also spoken out against a bill in the U.S. Senate aimed at silencing supporters of BDS. The race for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination is getting crowded. Former Vice President Mike Pence will face ex-President Donald Trump and at least 10 others vying for the party's nod. Former New Jersey Republican Governor Chris Christie, a vocal critic of Trump, also plans to run. Christie ran for president for the first time in 2016, but dropped out early after a setback in the primary. Other Republicans seeking the presidential nomination include Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, and Vivek Ramaswamy. The winner of the Republican primary will face Democratic Party President Joe Biden, who is seeking re-election. More than 600,000 people in the U.S. have lost Medicaid coverage since the end of the COVID-19 public health emergency. Late last year, Congress reached a bipartisan agreement to end continuous coverage requirements. This opened the door for a massive elimination of the health program. In Florida alone, 250,000 people were cut from Medicaid, even as Governor Ron DeSantis plans a run for president. Jonathan Cohn of the HuffPost reports DeSantis has refused to support the Affordable Care Act's Medicaid expansion. This is why over 12% of Floridans do not have health insurance. A lawsuit filed last week in Mississippi challenges a new law banning public protests without a permit. The law, which goes into effect July 1st, requires protesters to obtain written permission from the police chief. It prohibits protests near government buildings and sidewalks without a permit. Civic groups have called the legislation unconstitutional. The plaintiffs, which include the group Black Voters Matter, have said the law risks arresting and detaining peaceful protesters. They said peaceful gatherings on public property have been a part of the American tradition to air grievances. More recently, there have been protests against laws dealing with courts and policing, as well as Mississippi's underinvestment in Jackson's struggling water system. Recently, several states have passed laws criminalizing or restricting protest actions. In a major breakthrough, scientists have succeeded in X-raying a single atom. The atom is the smallest unit of any element or material. Previously, the most advanced X-ray machines could only shine through an attogram, or a cluster of 10,000 atoms. Now, Argonne National Laboratory in Illinois has developed a new technique using a synchrotron instrument to achieve the breakthrough. It will help medical science fight serious, life-threatening diseases. It will also contribute to the development of super-fast quantum computers and other advances in materials and ecological science. The U.S. and India agree on a defense technology roadmap. Details after the break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. The United States and India have agreed on a detailed roadmap for defense technology and equipment procurement. The plan is expected to be finalized during Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Washington later this month. The Press Trust of India reports the proposal includes the exchange of technology for the manufacture of fighter jet engines. The plan also involves the delivery of 30 armed drones to India worth more than $3 billion. Plans were formulated during a meeting on Monday between U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and his Indian counterpart Rajnath Singh in New Delhi. India is the largest importer of arms in the world. 3 Uyghur brothers who fled China have been languishing in an Indian prison for nearly a decade. The siblings left northwest China after being persecuted by Chinese authorities. Even after serving their 18-month sentence in India for crossing the border without permission, they remain in prison since 2013. They now fear imminent deportation to northwest China, where they could be tried again and possibly killed. In June 2013, Indian border officials arrested brothers Adil, Abdul Khaliq, and Salamu in the Ladakh region of Jammu and Kashmir. They were arrested near a post on the India-China border, then prosecuted and convicted in a court in Ladakh. Their lawyers said after completing their sentences, the authorities booked them under the Public Safety Act. The preventative law is used in Jammu and Kashmir to detain political activists. Under it, a person can be detained without a trial. A UN official has described the humanitarian situation in the Central African Republic as critical. On Monday, UN humanitarian coordinator Muhammad Ag Ayoga said roughly 2.4 million people in the landlocked country that borders Sudan and Congo are at risk. Muslims in the country have been subject to genocide and persecution since 2014. Nearly all of its 450 mosques have been destroyed. Muslims accuse France of collaboration with the extremist Christian group the Lord's Army of orchestrating the genocide. A 2-year-old Palestinian toddler was buried Tuesday in the occupied West Bank. The Israeli army fired shots near his home in Ramallah when he was hit with a bullet. Mohammed Haytham Tamimi and his father were on their way to visit relatives. The father accused Israeli forces of opening fire directly at his car. The Palestinian Office of Defense for Children International said Al-Tamimi is among 27 Palestinian minors killed by Israel in the occupied West Bank and Gaza since January. Tensions in the West Bank have escalated in recent months due to repeated Israeli attacks on Palestinian towns. According to Palestinian figures, Israeli forces have killed more than 155 Palestinians since the beginning of this year. At least 21 Israelis were killed in separate attacks during the same period. Iran has reopened its embassy in the Saudi capital Riyadh after 7 years. It also reopened its consulate in the Saudi port city of Jeddah. Iran has appointed veteran diplomat Ali Reza Enayati as its ambassador to Saudi Arabia. Iranian and Saudi top diplomats recently met and agreed to resume diplomatic relations in March after 2 years of negotiations brokered by Iraq and Oman. China brokered the latest round of talks, followed by a meeting of foreign ministers in Beijing in April. Saudi Arabia is also preparing to reopen its diplomatic missions in Iran. It had closed its embassy in Tehran and consulate in the city of Mashhad in January 2016. This was after an angry mob attacked them. The incident followed the execution of prominent Saudi Shia cleric Sheikh Nimr al-Nim. The acting governor of an Afghan province has been killed by a suicide bomber. On Tuesday, the bomber was driving a car filled with explosives and detonated it near the vehicle in which Nisar Ahmad Ahmadi was a passenger. Ahmadi was the deputy governor of the northern province of Badakhshan. The region's police chief was killed in a similar attack several months ago. Mu'azzuddin Ahmadi, head of the province's Culture and Information Ministry, said the deputy governor was a target of suicide bombing. The driver was also killed and 6 others wounded in the attack. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack, which authorities attribute to ISIS. Former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan is alleging there is a conspiracy to keep his party out of the elections. He claimed on Twitter that the government has unleashed a reign of terror against his party's workers. Khan is leader of Tehreek-e-Insaf, the country's largest political force. He said authorities have arrested thousands of his associates, including former ministers and members of parliament. Pakistan's government, led by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, confirmed about 5,000 people, including women, had been arrested. They are accused of resorting to violence after Khan's arrest on corruption charges. Dozens of those arrested were handed over to the army to stand trial in military courts for allegedly looting defense facilities on May 9th. Khan said on Twitter mainstream media was barred from covering his statements. Khan has accused the powerful Pakistani military of being behind the crackdown and media ban to dismantle his party. Sharif said his government was taking action against the guilty within the law and promised no rights violations would occur. Before we end today's news, I'd like to make a special request. It takes our team a combined 55 hours of work daily to produce this news for you. It is news with a unique perspective, and you will find it only here. Sound Vision is the not-for-profit organization which produces it, and like PBS and NPR, it depends on your donations. Please visit MuslimNetwork.tv to donate now, or click on the link below to donate. Thank you. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit MuslimNetwork.tv. Salam and good night.